Greetings. Greetings. Oh my God. I almost had an emergency. I was trying to go live and they said that I couldn't go live, but I figured it out. I feel like every time I step away, I'm relearning something. Every time. And because I haven't been live, I think in almost a month because we had a retreat and everything else, I feel almost out of practice, you know? It's kind of like the introvert that is home for a while, then has to sort of go back and return to society and talk to people. And I feel like I'm relearning to do that because when I started doing these lives, I'm not someone who really likes to be out there like that. So this has always been a challenge for me, but I'm here. And I got nervous that it wasn't working. Come on in, come on in. We about to do some things tonight. I also want to give a shout out to my partner for this wonderful cup. Even has my colors on it, comes with a little straw. You know what I'm saying? I love it. So I got my tea going, got a little incense burning. And we're gonna talk about becoming more balanced. So just have a seat, waiting for some folks to come in. But I was live last week. So I'm both on Instagram and YouTube. So if you see me moving my head, that's what I'm doing. I was live last week offering my inner child bundle. Some of you took me up on my offer. It was kind of like a last minute thing. I didn't really plan it. My partner challenged me to just put it out there. And I look forward to connecting to those who purchased the bundle. My inner child course is a very powerful course. It's always available, but I added 2 additional perks I was offering for this cyber weekend that are not available when you just buy the inner child course on its own. And the 2 perks I was offering was a 45-minute session with me, one-on-one, and also my 10-day inner child core wounding meditation challenge. And but you could still get the inner child course. It's like a 2-hour course. I think it's pretty good. So, but we're about to go in, drink a little tea. It's still hot. All right. So because winter is such a contemplative season, and we're all just thinking about our lives and what's important to us, we're having end of the year thoughts, and we're also having beginning of the year thoughts, right? And we're cocooning. So what better time than to go deep, right? I had posted something 2 posts ago that I wanted to go deeper into about. Welcome. We're just talking about becoming more balanced. I want to go deeper into becoming more balanced in our lives and what it means to do that, and some of the barriers that get in the way of us becoming more balanced. Let me fix this light. And just provide a reframe. I love a powerful reframe because when you are able to be open to a powerful reframe, it really just changes how you look at things, and also changes how you view the world. And it helps you to manage things a bit more with ease. What's going on to here? And so this is just an invitation into a different narrative. I always say, eat the meat, spit out the bones, take what you need, leave what you don't. Okay. So it's all good. So I feel like becoming balanced has a lot to do with how we obviously view ourselves, and also the lens that we see the outside world in. And I realize there's a really interesting connection between being balanced, and that connection is to the labels that we hold as it relates to our identities and, of course, our mental health. So here's the thing, and I posted this on my stories, but I was like, labels are for the mind, not for the soul. And what I mean by this is, like, the spirit recognizes only love. And I believe that we are made of spirit and we're going through this experience in the human form, but really our original form is spirit form. And so the spirit recognizes only love, right? And so the habit of attaching ourselves to labels disrupts our journey to balance and wholeness. And so we have a habit, because of how we've been conditioned in this society, to attach ourselves to labels that sort of squeeze away our ability to become balanced and whole. It often causes a bit of suffering and conflict and internal war. And what I mean by labels is the whole idea of just mental health diagnoses and identities, like the roles we play, like I'm a mother, I'm a father, I'm my job, I'm not my job, I'm a failure, I'm an overachiever, right? I'm successful, I'm an imposter, I'm everything in between, right? And you know what's interesting, after doing so many plant medicine retreats and working with shamans on a deeper level, shamans that I've worked with, well, I feel like most shamans, but I can't, hold on to that claim. But a lot of shamans don't see mental disorders. I don't even like that word, but and that could be just a culture thing, and that's just them being sort of really connected to the spirit world. But they just define things in two categories: balance and imbalance. And I think it's interesting to view our lives through those two lenses. And again, I said this in the previous video that I posted on my feed. Go check it out if you want. It's just a short snippet. And what would our lives look like if we just sort of viewed our lives from those two lenses? And again, it makes sense because we live in a society where the very first thing that they ask us, what do you do? What do you do for work? Where do you go to school? When I lived in the DC area, DMV, that was really the first question people asked. And so that is how we lead. We lead through our roles, and we learn to live through our roles and not really through our spirits or our hearts. And I feel like when we do that long enough, we become very imbalanced, because now we need to create environments. We need to have people in our lives that support and validate and give us reassurance of these roles that we cling to. Because if that doesn't happen, then it causes some sort of internal conflict, this sort of war, like I mentioned earlier, within. And, I listen to a lot of Ram Dass, and I quote him a lot just because he just has some just powerful messages that I connect with. And as Ram Dass says it, he says, once you become somebody, you need to validate that somebody that you think you are. And the minute that you think you are somebody, you need everyone around you to reassure you of that somebody, which reinforces that what you think is true. And this resonated a lot with me because I feel like the first half of my life was me untangling sort of these roles that I developed over the years, right? And I was wearing a lot of roles and a lot of identities, but I also felt that they were all also suffocating me in different ways, in ways that sort of was limiting my growth and also causing a lot of imbalance in my life. And the roles I'm talking about are roles of an academic. I'm a clinical therapist, so there's that role, right? And it's interesting because back then I wasn't very conscious about all these certain roles. I just played into them because that was the role that I was playing. And now that, I'm sort of aware of the impact of some of these roles that they have in my life, so I'm kind of do it in a more conscious way, right? And what I mean by that is like, okay, I'm well aware that I'm in a certain avatar, I look a certain way. I'm also very well aware that, yeah, I may have some sort of background, educational background or whatever. But I feel like when I was really attached to those roles, I found myself more depressed, more anxious, more stuck because I just felt out of alignment, right? And I don't know if that sounds like anybody out there, but as I sort of deepened my journey into myself and just sort of understanding myself through a spiritual lens, I realized I had to move away from those attachments and leave space between me and these roles that I came here to play. So I say it is to say, in the midst of it all, some of us are watching ourselves sort of tilt on the balance scale, right? But we're also lacking some of the self-awareness and maybe the desire to take action to bring ourselves back to balance. And the reason why this is so really difficult, y'all, or we perceive it as difficult, is because there's a trade-off, right? I always talk about a trade-off of being the way that we are, even when it's causing us suffering and pain. There's a trade-off. We are benefiting from this disposition, right? And so there's this satisfaction that we're getting from being where we are in this current state. And I'll give you an example. So I like thinking small a lot because I feel like a lot of people connect to that, where they play small because they're afraid to be seen, or they're afraid of rejection, or they're afraid of failure, or they just have all these fears and sort of these distortions in their thoughts and their minds. And so they limit their capacity and they don't lean into their fullest potential, right? So that is the trade-off. The trade-off is that I can avoid the discomfort. I can avoid being rejected. I can avoid being seen. And I could just, hide out and play small for as long as I comfortably, right? Because to me, it's just a false sense of comfort. And so the invitation here is to let go of the satisfaction, because that satisfaction is actually tied into the ego. And so the ego is receiving that said trade-off, right? That payoff. And when you do that, when you let go of that attachment, the suffering will dissolve over time, right? Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Drop them in the chat. And also, if anything comes up after, send me a DM. But one of the things I'd love for you to ask yourself is, what are the barriers? And this includes resistance. Resistance is a barrier. Resistance is usually rooted in some sort of fear, discomfort, usually just fear, really what it comes down to. And so what are the barriers and sort of this underneath the resistance that is preventing you from becoming balanced, right? Part of that is taking a look at your ego, because your ego plays a huge part. And some people are like, I want to get rid of my ego. And we don't want to get rid of our ego. And I did a whole video about that, which you can check on my YouTube channel. But it's all about developing a healthier relationship with your ego. It's all about noticing when your ego is at play, noticing who's sort of in the driver's seat, right? And so sometimes I do want to say, sometimes it's helpful to receive a label, right? Because then you're like, oh, okay, I know what this is, especially if it's a mental health thing, especially if it's something that's tied to your physical health. You're like, okay, I know what this is. And now I know what the next step is. So I'm not bashing labels or anything. What I'm having us do is take a look at the relationship or the attachment, the connection to that label. A second here, these pop-ups. And so, yeah. But the labels, again, aren't the end all be all. Like, we don't want to just get stuck there, right? We also want to move past the labels itself. Because what happens is when we become too attached to the labels, again, we have to create those narratives to support the labels. Then we have to restructure our entire environments to continue to perpetuate the labels. And you already know what happens when we overly identify with the things in our lives. Because If the universe comes around and says, hey, when you're overly identified with something, I might have to shake things up, because you can lose yourself when you're overly attached to something, right? It can cause a lot of confusion. It could cause us to not really connect to our intuition. It can cause us not really connect to who we truly are. And so I actually did a whole video on my YouTube about 3 ways that we can live more authentically. And it goes into the things that we need to let go so that we can move closer to ourselves. And a lot of it has to do with letting go of certain identities, certain roles, certain labels, all of those things, right? And so definitely go and check that out. It's actually our most watched video, so I guess it really struck a chord for a lot of folks. I mean, it's very relatable, especially when you grow up in this society where you're being kind of forced to be put in a box somewhere, and what are you, and identify this and all that. And it's like, oh. So ask yourself this question: in which ways are you off balance because you are compromising your boundaries, right? And then ask yourself, in which ways are you off balance because you are hiding who you are? And which ways are you off balance because you're chasing something that isn't directly related to really evolving your soul, evolving yourself, but just evolving this sort of avatar in this 3D world? Because there's more to us than what meets the eye. And so these questions are important because they require you to dig deep, right? I'm all about going below the surface. And, some people, well, I will say that I'm huge on self-reflection. I think that, we need to do that often and not in a way of obsession, because we really do need to audit our lives and see what's going on in it and leave the space to do that. But some people will spin about their lives, and that's not reflection, right? And some people will reflect, but the spinning looks more like negative thoughts, regrets, right? Why did I do what I did? Why didn't I do what I was, quote unquote, supposed to do? And so the spinning comes from an aversion of self, right? Versus when we sit and we reflect, what you're ultimately saying is like, how can I learn more about myself in a more compassionate, loving, non-judgmental way, right? But as you know, we're humans. We got to make things complicated, right? We often complicate life. What's going on, Kim? She said, growing through the motions with this deep shadow work going on. Child, tis the season for that shadow work. I'm excited for you, because on the other side, you already know, is more balance, more wholeness, more joy, more peace. Indeed. So we often complicate life because life is often dominated by our minds, right? By our minds and not our hearts. And we lead with the thoughts, strategizing and want lists and want all these things. And what I've come to realize, again, life is about balance, not the work-life balance that we're accustomed to hearing, that we've been fed, but internal balance, right? I spoke with a friend not too long ago, and she was experiencing this herself. And I told her it was really, really crucial for her to sort of understand what is teetering the scales from one spectrum to the other. What I mean by this is being able to audit your life and notice who or what is making the scales heavier on one side than the other, or even what sort of got you lofty, right? Kind of in the clouds. If you're high up above versus really, really low. And when you have sort of this self-awareness and the ability to create the space to do this life audit, then you can really make powerful decisions to either remove or adjust a thing or a situation that is causing you to be more imbalanced. And sometimes you come to find out that literally we are the ones that is causing the imbalance in our lives, right? I always say we must take 100% responsibility for all of the things, for where our lives are in this moment. And I know some of y'all come at me and say, I'm not taking responsibility. They did this and that, and it's not my fault this happened, blah, blah. I'm just saying in the present day, what is working and what is not working. And we need to scrutinize, not obsess, but get curious about what is it not working, what is causing the imbalance, right? So really just take a moment to, especially around this time of the season, obviously do this all through the year, right? But usually in the winter season, we're cocooning, kind of get distracted during the summer because the weather's warm, we're out and about. But the season allows for really, really deep reflection. And just notice what feels heavier than it needs to be, right? And then begin to lighten the load and bring more balance and lightness into your life, right? I was gonna share this YouTube comment I got, but I'm not even gonna share it because I don't even wanna. I'm feeling this sort of energy and I don't want to get off this energy. But I do want to say, even in the pain and the suffering, there is always a choice. I'll say it again. Even in the pain and suffering, there's always a choice. Granted, the choice might be delayed, right? The choice may come later, but the choice is always there. And the choice is always yours. Some people feel like, I don't have a choice. I beg to differ, right? Obviously, I don't know the ins and outs of your lives. I don't have the full context, right? Even when I was struggling with my own depression and anxiety, I was still choosing the job that was causing the depression and anxiety. I was still choosing the relationships that was causing the depression and anxiety and the chaos. I was still doing all those things until one day I just got fed up. I got fed up with myself. I got fed up with the world that I created that literally was reinforcing that reality for me. And it wasn't an overnight situation. So although I was in the midst of that chaos, it took a few years for me to finally make that choice to live a different life. So remember that you always have a choice. And in that choice, give yourself the grace and the compassion to really just look at your life, not through the lens of a judgment, but through the lens of curiosity. What is it that I need to learn in this moment, in this season, that is going to help me get closer to who I truly am? Because all of this journey is all about living the most authentic life that we can possibly live, to be who we truly are, in the deepest of our core. And what we need to do is reevaluate the things, the people, the situations that are pulling us out of our own authenticity. Okay? So this video is not about 3 steps to becoming more balanced, right? Like, this is not a checklist, okay? That's typically not how I operate. Sometimes I have a little something that has a 1, 2, 3, but most of the time, life isn't a checklist, right? There is a bit of a roadmap. There's something, but the things on the road are constantly shifting and changing, right? And so, and a lot of you already know some of these things, right? Meditating, practicing spiritual hygiene, whatever that looks like for you, getting out into nature, moving your body, watching your words, because your words hold frequency, right? Minding the energy around you, all of those things, letting go where you're holding on too tightly, and many other things to sort of help maintain your balance. Just find a rhythm that works for you. And so again, this video is not about a 3-step process, because you've heard of all those things already, right? It's you have an idea what it means to have healthier ways to sort of cope or present yourself or show up in this world, in your life, and show up towards the things that may be stressful or challenging in your life or hard to manage, what I really want you to get from this video is that life is about balance and imbalance, regardless of the labels or the identities and all those things. And sometimes, again, a powerful reframe can really be the catalyst to create powerful change in your life. And so we can change, again, how we view something so we can ultimately begin to change our behaviors, because now we're looking through, because we're not looking through an outdated and wounded lens, right? So my encouragement to you is begin to give space between you and whatever barrier that is keeping you stuck, and lead with curiosity so that, again, you can ultimately heal and find balance and find wholeness and all those beautiful things that are on the other side of a lot of those challenges. Okay, I see Sana says, I love meditating, metacognition. It has helped me so much in the last few years. Yeah. I mean, meditation is an oldie but goodie, you know. I mean, even if it's 5 minutes, you build up to it. But that will, you know, if it's not plant medicines, to me, the next best thing is meditation. So thank you for sharing that, Sana, on the YouTube. I think that's all I got for y'all. So 2024, a lot of great things are happening in 2024. Got 2 big announcements coming up. One is the retreat dates for next year. It's exciting. It's going to be at a new location. We've already hinted already. It's going to be in Costa Rica. Costa Rica is beautiful if you haven't been. And the energy there is powerful. So hopefully some of y'all will join us. Again, it's going to be small, right? Small group. And we're going to go deep. You know, if you've done the talking, if you've done therapy, you've done everything, and you're still coming back to the same thing, plant medicines might be the thing for you. Also next year, I'll be probably doing less one-on-ones. So I really love the group interaction. So if you do want to get in and work one-on-one together, the opportunity is still there, but it might be going away in 2024 as I sort of shift and refocus. But I thank you for listening and joining me tonight. I should be back here next week. We'll see. It's my partner's birthday next week, and we're actually going to be traveling because it's cold out here, okay? And I need a break from the cold weather, and so does she. So I'll see y'all, and I'll keep y'all posted. And again, reach out. I do respond to the DMs as long as it's appropriate, you know what I'm saying? But thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me on this live, and I will catch y'all next time. Peace out.